Chapter 3. 2 months later, a great party was held at Hewell Grange to celebrate the coming of age of Lord Windsor, the second Earl of Plymouth. All the tenants on the Windsor estate were invited to this party, in the grounds of the old Grange. Sheep and oxen were roasted whole in front of the house, which was pulled down a few years later to build another in the prevailing Queen Anne style. The Spencer family were important guests, as the longest-standing tenants on the Windsor estate, and Tom Spencer had many duties to perform for the young Earl in order to keep the barrels of beer flowing and the fiddlers playing for the dancing. He was so busy with these duties that Phillis thought that she was being neglected by him, and was glad of the attentions of George Cooks, and she danced repeatedly with that reckless gentleman. Old John Spencer and his wife left the party early before their niece Phillis was ready to go, but she had her maid, Mattie Briggs, with her, and Tom was left in charge to escort them home. George Cooks also left Phillis to speak to one of his cronies, Henry Hardwick, who was lodging at the village inn, the Fox in Fox Lydiot. Hardwick was not a local man, but he had become known as a heavy drinker and companion of George Cooks. The Fox was kept by Mabel Bates, the mother of Tony Bates, who was courting Mattie Briggs. Phillis grew impatient waiting for Tom to take her home, and decided to walk home to Lones Hill on her own, for her maid had also slipped away with Tony Bates. Phillis made for the footpath towards Salter's Lane, leading to Lones Hill Farm, and she passed the spot where George Cooks and Henry Hardwick were talking without seeing them in the trees. Hardwick was drunk, but not too drunk to notice the attractions of Phillis as she passed, and he said to his friend, "There goes the prettiest girl I've seen for a long time. I'm going after her to steal a kiss." Cooks restrained him with the words, "As you are my friend, Harry, you will do nothing of the sort. That girl is worth £10,000, and I mean to marry her." Hardwick replied, "Then just because I am your friend, I'll do it. I'll go and take my kiss. My lady will cry for help, and you can come and drive me off, and she'll fall into your arms." Cooks laughed. "Go on then. Take your kiss, but hang me if I don't spoil your sport before you have time to taste her lips." Dr. Wilmore was also a guest at the Hewell Grange party, and he had been gathering the herb Bettany from a remote part of the park around the Grange. He saw Phillis walking alone along the footpath, and the girl's alarm when she saw a drunken stranger following her. Phillis tried to hurry on, but Hardwick seized her from behind, on the shoulder and wrist, muttering, "Stay a minute. One kiss before we part." She gave a little scream and struggled to free herself. The old doctor then saw Tom Spencer run up with a stout oak stick in his hand. Hardwick let the girl go in order to defend himself with his sword, and Phillis ran towards her home. He lunged angrily at Tom and wounded him, but Tom hit him on the head with his stick with all his force. Hardwick dropped the poleaxe to the ground and appeared to be dead. Tom stood perfectly still, aghast at what he had done. He forgot that he was hurt and could only think that he had been too hasty and heavy-handed. George Cooks had seen the fray from the distance and arrived in time to see his friend stretched out on the ground, with Tom standing over him. At the same time, Dr. Wilmore stepped out from the trees and heard Cooks call Tom a scoundrel and add the following threat: "You have killed my friend, and you shall hang for it, or my name is not George Cooks." Tom was too afraid of the consequences of his action to make any reply. The doctor knelt down to examine the prostrate man, and he shook his head as he looked at the head wound. He's still breathing, and that is as much as can be said. While Cooks was bending over Hardwick's body, the doctor rose and touched Tom on the arm and whispered, "This is an ugly business. Go home and avoid Cooks. He is an evil man and means mischief to you." He then pointed to the blood trickling from Tom's side. "You're hurt as well. I will come and attend to you as soon as I've done all I could do for the dying man." Tom walked slowly home, leaning on his stick, feeling faint, dizzy and frightened.